guys, welcome back to my live. Sorry for not live streaming that much. I just taking a little break and stuff, recording the like school things that and stuff like that. So I just been, doing this type of stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna get one of these drills here real quick and stuff and show you the base I'm making, because part one with I found I exploded a base. I traveled in the nether like 1,000 blocks or something, I can't remember, but I went for until I found a room portal and I built my stuff there, a portal there. Then I came through it and yeah, and after that I just started to build something new. It's gonna look for a nice house. This is good, big. Add. Okay, yeah. That's what you guys do if you guys want to get this. Press download MC World. Now you see it's downloading right there. Then press install MC World. Okay. So after you press that, we'll take you into Minecraft. After you go to Minecraft, you will see a world. And when you join, when you get in the stuff, you'll see resource packs and everything. Notifications here start to pop up. Yep, right there. Will import started. Will import started. Will import finished successfully. Then you know your world is there. And this right here. And so I'm gonna pause it until we get into it. So yeah.
Broken spears and swords littered the ground. Some
Okay, so guys, I have to do something real quick. So my brother, here is gonna play and stuff. Just show them the big modern house and everything. Get some gear. Got the right gear and everything.
What terrible beast could have set upon this town and done it? Then he heard footfalls, quiet and pleading beneath some nearby rubble. A survivor. He rushed over the pile and evaporated the earth. Underneath, a feeble old man, covered in stone dust, was quivering. God helped him up and guided him into one of the few remaining huts still standing in the village. They both took seats. God held up two hands, cradling empty space. Two cups suddenly occupied that space, both filled with warm, healing tea. He passed the old man one of the cups while sipping from his own. He asked the old man if he'd seen what had happened. The old man told him no, he hadn't seen anything in decades. He'd been rendered blind in his youth. Little did either of them know that very blindness was the only reason he was the sole survivor of the massacre. The blind man told God that one of the village's scouts had gone up into the mountain with a small hunting party. The group was gone for days, until one of the members, the youngest among them, returned weeping, frostbitten, and covered in blood. He said that his friends had been killed by beasts in the mountains, something that almost looked like a death, but terrible on its face. Its awful, awful face. He would never forget it. He was just lucky to escape with his life when the others were torn apart. But when the young man returned, he brought the shadow of death with him. It was a curse that doomed the entire village, men, women, and children, to a terrible fate. And that fate was upon them a mere hour after the survivor had returned. Of course, there were gaps in the blind man's understanding, given he was lacking one of his major senses. But the sounds he could describe with perfect clarity. It was faint and distant at first, that awful wail, and the galloping, hands and feet thundering against the ground faster than any horse could move, getting closer and closer. Another villager saw it approaching and screamed. Then it was upon them. The villager screamed, but it screamed louder, always wailing and shrieking and sobbing like a monster crawling straight up from hell. People tried to fight it by the sounds of it. The blind man, with teary, blank eyes, recalled the sounds of arrows knocking and swords clashing against something. But even their greatest warriors had screamed and died. Those who saw it and tried to flee and hide were slaughtered all the same. Soon enough, there were only two sounds left in the village: the monster and the blind man, both weeping. He didn't understand why it never took him. It wasn't so. It took everything else. To leave him here alive where everyone and everything he'd ever known was destroyed was a greater punishment than even death. After killing all of these innocents, the monster had simply wandered off to the mountains again, the sound of its quiet sobs getting smaller and smaller until it was gone altogether. God comforted the blind man as he wept for the loss of all his loved ones. He told the blind man that he would venture up to the mountains himself and confront the creature on his own territory, and at the very least, find out why it had done this terrible thing. But first, he must relocate the blind man to a safer place. He placed a hand on the blind man's shoulder, and he vanished. He would appear in another friendly village miles away. God sent a silent message into the minds of every villager. Take good care of this man. He is undergone horrors you can't even imagine. Your kindness will be rewarded later. For that, you have my promise. God sighed and turned his tired eyes to the distant mountains. A monster looked up there, perhaps one of his own creations, or maybe a corruption of one of his creations. Either way, whatever existed without his knowledge existed without his consent, and he intended to know of the beast in the mountains. Though given what he'd seen already, he didn't expect to see one more motion from this murderous demon. Miles away up in the mountains, the creature licked the blood from its back lips. It looked like it might have once been a human being, or something that aspired to humanity, or mocked it with its very existence. It was a huge, gangling beast, skin alabaster, eyes empty and soulless, dribbling with bullets and tears down a hideous scarred face. It crawled into the frozen mouth of the cave with great icicle fangs, weeping and weeping. All it ever wanted was to be alone. Why did they have to be unhuman? Didn't they know what happened? All the terrible things they needed to. The creature curled its long, gangly body into the fetal position, scratching great ruts into the sides of its bald cranium with long, sharp fingers. Terrible things. Terrible, terrible things. And then there was a brilliant flash just a few feet away. The monster was surprised. It turned to see a figure silhouetted in the mouth of the cave. He wore sandals and thin robes. His eyes glowed with the kind of power that the monster didn't recognize. This stranger stared at the monster without an ounce of fear in his heart. He stared right into his eyes. Unbelievable. No, no. He could feel it again. The rage bubbling up deep down. A cauldron of seething anger. It hated the feeling like being lowered into a vat of molten metal. Unspeakable fire and pain coursing through every vessel. He began to weep and scream while the stranger in the cave mouth just watched, not moving a muscle. Do you know who I am? The stranger asked with a deep voice that betrayed almost infinite power, knowledge, and wisdom. But it wouldn't change the outcome here. The monster bounded at him at speeds that wouldn't be seen again until jet planes and bullet trains are invented millennia into the future. Its jaws were hanging impossibly wide, fangs formed, its arms extended, and deadly claws ready to strike. But before those terrible hands could close around the stranger, he vanished. The monster stumbled and rolled across the snow, confused. What trickery was being used here? I'll take that as a no, said the voice from behind him. You want to kill your father, some respect. More respect than you gave to your four people down in the village, that is. Seeing the creature turned and saw the stranger standing back in the darkness of the cave, staring at him. But the beast didn't have the capacity for awe or holy terror, only violence. Boundless, limitless, unstoppable violence. He darted towards the stranger and trying to strike him. Somehow it was like fighting in an empty room. Not a single one of its deadly strikes seemed to hit the stranger. The stranger leaped backwards, putting some space between himself and the monster, but still not breaking a sweat. He breathed in deeply, then exhaled. The breath came out like a mighty typhoon, shocking even the monster with its sudden force. It was blown backwards, a leaf in the wind, until its long claws dug into the ground and anchored it in place. The stranger gave a wry smile at this, impressed. My, you're certainly a tenacious one, aren't you? He said. Perhaps we can talk for a little while instead of fighting. I want to know why you killed all those people. No answer. The beast roared, its mighty limbs pounding into the ground as it closed the gap between itself and the stranger in fractions of a second. It would kill him, rend him, destroy him just like all the others. He left it no choice. Suddenly the ground below it seemed to give way. The creature was confused. It looked down to see that the ancient stone below had somehow taken on the properties of a liquid, and it was sinking. The beast panicked and it began to thrash. It was a strong swimmer, but it didn't expect to need to swim here. The shock was too much, and soon the ground submerged it entirely, muffling its terrible roars and shrieks. And just like that, the ground was solid again, trapping the beast inside. The stranger stepped forward and looked at the ground. A much-needed time out, he said. You do yourself no good struggling like this. Despite its terrible capacity for evil, God couldn't help but admire the beast, at least on the level of construction. It was so pared down, so unburdened, a killer to the core but seemingly unkillable. And he gave this creature millions of species, and species those in turn had created through billions of years of breeding and evolution. And somewhere along the line, this thing happened. It was easy even for the universe's creator to lose track of some of the tinier variables. And in the grand scheme of things, even this monster was still a tiny variable. But right here, right now, it was still one hell of a problem. The ground rumbled below God. Cracks formed. The mountain peak shook. God raised an eyebrow, genuinely impressed, as the monster ripped free of its stone prison and re-entered the fray. It roared and screamed still, its blank eyes fixed on him. Its skeletal body throbbed and heaved with power. Unlike any other creature in nature, it was almost like the longer their conflict went on, the more energized the beast became. God sighed. All those poor villagers. They never stood a chance against this monster. It lunged for him, even faster and stronger than before. He teleported out of the way in the nick of time, and the beast's claws cleaved through a nearby cave wall. Effortless. God materialized nearby, but he didn't have time to speak. The beast lunged again and again and again. Every time he reappeared, the beast went for him with impossible speed. Deciding to widen the playing field, God teleported to the top of the mountain. The creature, somehow sensing his presence, vaulted upwards and tunneled through the roof of the cave, bursting out to the ground in front of God, who was floating just slightly off the ground.
It would be wise of you to stop.
God carefully intoned.
All this time, I've been going easy. You don't want to find out what the wrath of God looks like.
Storm clouds were gathering above. Mighty thunder roared across the sky. The beast was undeterred. It roared and galloped towards God, and God, in turn, called down a response. A volley of lightning, the likes of which the world has never seen before or since, struck down on the charging monster. The sudden white flash could sting the eyes from miles away. The monster shrieked from the blast, feeling its flesh lift off its bones and atomize in the sheer heat of the electricity around it. It could smell itself cooking. The lightning blast only lasted for a few seconds, but for the beast, it felt like eternity. When the onslaught stopped, the air was still heavy with electrical potential. God stared down at the black scorch mark on the side of the mountain where the creature had been standing. All the snow within a mile had been evaporated by the blast. It was a raw display of the power of nature that would make even Zeus tremble in his sandals. And yet, there was still movement. Some things started to get up from the birth hatch where nothing should be left alone. A blackened skeleton, rising shakily from the ash, but still very much. As it started to rise, new flesh began growing over its bones little by little. Even God was astonished by the sight of it. He'd never seen a creature cling so ardently to life in spite of having truly unsurmountable power amassed against it. It was up against God, and still it fought. The monster tottered on its previously long limbs, still recoiled, and each respected for a creature driven by such single-minded violent purpose. When enough of its space grew back to do so, it began to weep and sob again, tears streaming down its terrible face. Looking at this creature after all this, God couldn't help but feel a new emotion, pity. He lowered himself to the ground and approached the creature, like none had ever done before. He gathered it up into his arms, and he held it, feeling its heaving, wretched sobs against him. The beast was in so much pain, he could feel it, radiating from within.
Speak, my son,
God said in a soft, fatherly voice. And for the first and only time, the monster spoke. That was all it managed to choke out before devolving back into unintelligible babble. But it was enough. Enough for God to understand its pain. He did not know if it would be right to change the monster's nature. Is it ever right to truly change anyone's nature? But it was within his almost limitless power to grant it one reprieve from pain. He settled the beast in the snow below him. It was quiet and still. And God said unto the beast,
rest now, child. Rest for thousands of years. I hope only that when you eventually awaken, you feel.
And so another story from the catalog of SCP-343. Of course, it leaves us with certain questions, chief among them being, is it true? Did 343 and 096 have this chance encounter long ago? Or is it just another tall tale from an anomaly who fancies himself a deity? We have our truth, and you have yours. Let us know what you believe down below in the comments. Now go check out SCP-096 Shy Guy Escape, Incident 096-1-A Containment Breach, and your questions for God answered, for more fascinating tales of the anomalies featured in this video. Abel wanders through the sand, a lone warrior, dragging a long, dark sword behind him, his black cloak flowing in the gentle breeze. The sword was thirsty. It had been too long since it tasted blood. What had it been? Had been since he cut down 10 men in the tavern without breaking a sweat. They bled and screamed like pigs as he diced them into hold no more challenges, what a boring eternity was laying out before him. His burden as the greatest warrior of all time weighed on him heavier than the chain. It was old and rusty, fluttered over his shoulder and grasped in one bloody hand. About 15 feet behind him, the chain was connected to a dark stone esophagus that was a bunch of hard his eyes, skin, or heart. If ever he was slain in the glorious heat of battle, he'd rise out of it, ready to fight and kill another day. All because of the actions of his worthless, good-for-nothing brother. He looked up when he heard the rush of footsteps and the clanking of armor. Warriors, or whatever caste was around here, about 20 of them, circled all around him. Yes. Oh, yes. His grip tightened around his sword. One of the warriors called out something about him being under arrest by order of the king for murders beyond counting. Abel couldn't help but yawn. Words. Why he bought. He dropped the chain, and in one swift motion, he threw his sword. In a fraction of a second, it pierced the armor of the cowering man, spearing him through his formerly pure heart. The scream died in his throat. He fell to his knees, then collapsed entirely. The other soldiers bent to kill or apprehend and turned their long-lingering gasp. It was that little gasp, that moment of distraction, that sealed their fates. Abel's face cracked with a whisper of a grin as he drew 2 long daggers from the darkness of his coat. He'd at least try to have fun with this. Before the others could even get over their leader's sudden death, Abel had vaulted forward and begun his delicate dance of slide. Every swing found his way through armor and into skin. He sliced throats, leaped off heads, parried blows, and pierced hearts. There was barely a single scream. Abel killed too quick for screams. In what would seem like the blink of an eye for some, the soldiers around Abel found, most dead, the rest dying. Some looked up to him in their dying moments, in terrified awe of the efficacy of their killer. In their dying moments, they knew that they never had a chance. They might as well have been facing the glistening sight of death himself on the battlefield. Abel, on the other hand, rolled his eyes and sighed. Another pathetic waste of time. He sensed movement in the corner of his eye. One of the wounded soldiers was limping to his feet, trying to use the sword to lever himself off of the ground. With a flick of each wrist, Abel tossed his knife into the man, killing him instantly. Who he was, the only attempt to kill him was not effective. He said to whoever was still able to hear, "What offends me is that they would send so few, and that those few would be such pitiful excuses for soldiers. This wasn't a battle. It was a mercy killing." He was ready to turn around, grab the chain, and carry on walking, when he felt a sudden pain in his back. There was a slight whistle, and then another sharp spike of pain. There were now 2 arrows sticking out of his back. Abel turned, surprised, and saw a much larger force standing behind him. Swordsmen, archers, men with clubs and axes and chains. The ones he'd killed were little more than a distraction. This was the real threat. This was a real army. Perhaps these fools would give him some actual exercise. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a mighty obsidian battle axe. At the very least, he tried to have a little fun turning this common force into portraits. A fog of arrows sailed through the air as he charged forwards, perforating his body. The injuries didn't slow him down. He lunged, slashed, and cleaved. Even as the weapon struck him, he carried on, killing person after person. At times, it was almost exciting. Almost. But not quite. By the time he was done, none were left standing. 30 arrows were sticking out of him. He'd been cut deep by more weapons than he could count on his fingers and toes. He was breathing deeply, scarred chest pumping up and down. He caught blood and cracked his neck back into place. They might have cut him a little too deep this time. No matter. Abel fell to his knees, feeling the life drain from him. He wondered when he awoke from the coffin bed what the world would look like. Sometimes it was days, sometimes weeks, months, or even years. As he fell forward, dying once again, he hoped that he'd wake into a world with a warrior or beast that could actually challenge him. Maybe someday. This was one of Abel's many hundreds of years before he was contained by the SCP Foundation. He's perhaps the greatest warrior who ever lived, died, and became. He's a man so individually dedicated that only is he kept in a containment chamber under the sea, surrounded by highly trained and armored guards, he has his own localized on-site nuclear weapon, ready to blow away and annihilate him and his entire containment area if deemed necessary. He may not be a contagious, anomalous pathogen or a lethal pneumatic hazard, or a giant beast shooting world-destroying fireballs in every direction, but if this one-man massacre was left to his own devices, there's no doubt that he would methodically slaughter his way through the human race until an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario was practically inevitable. He was fueled by pure hatred and an almost bottomless bloodlust. He simply lived to fight and kill. And not only did he have the will and the skill to be a pure force of annihilation, but his anomalous abilities also make him perfectly tailored to the task. He has massively enhanced physical strength, speed, and durability, taking the kind of damage that would kill several normal humans to reliably put him down. Though even that is only a temporary measure. Abel will always resurrect back into his black sarcophagus to menace the SCP Foundation another day. It is also effectively impossible to disarm Abel, because he has the anomalous ability to pull deadly edged weapons from localized pocket dimensions at will, and his proficiency with these weapons is unlike any warrior the world has ever known, before or since. During containment breaches, he's regularly killed scores of trained Foundation guards, with both numerical advantages and considerably more advanced ranged weapons. Despite being a simple humanoid, he was taking up a truly insane amount of containment resources. Despite his violent tendencies, Abel is still a recognizable sentient human, albeit an extremely deadly anomalous one. This led some higher-ups at the Foundation to come up with an interesting idea. What if Abel's internal rage could be harnessed? What if they could use their resources to reshape this rampaging killer
this is the freezer.
the Foundation?
It's not a good place to hide somebody in,
If he wanted worthy opponents, what could be more worthy than the anomalous monsters that the Foundation faced on a daily basis? And as long as they kept the sarcophagus, even if Abel was killed in the line of duty, he'd still be accounted for. In many ways, if he could be trained and truly brought to heal, there would be no better asset to their victims' foes. It was this logic, allowing anomalies to work for the SCP Foundation in exchange for benefits, that led to the creation of a new, groundbreaking mobile task force, MTM Omega-7, Pandora's Box. This group became the SCP Foundation's Hail Mary pass. For any particularly dangerous or potentially deadly missions, they could send an Abel along with a group of highly trained Foundation soldiers that even the ancient blade-wielding warrior held respect for. While, like their namesake, Pandora's Box, it would all wind up in terrible tragedy. To begin with, they achieved some of the highest mission successful results of any mobile task force on the Foundation's payroll. No task was too challenging for them to swoop in and crush it. This was far from expected. Abel, one of the most violent SCPs they'd ever contained, suddenly became a great asset to their operations, a vital tool in their quest to keep the anomalous at bay. He cleaved through legions of Chaos Insurgency soldiers during breaches into their secure sites. He fought off well-paid, well-trained, and well-armed bodyguards of Marshal Carter and Dark Limited during Foundation raids on their clandestine operations. He'd even gone toe-to-toe with some of the deadliest anomalies in containment during mass escapes. It was hard to imagine how they'd ever lived without him. Of course, while Abel was happier than he had been in years in his element. In fact, as a working warrior giving varied missions and frequent opponents, there was still something nagging at him. His thoughts were hounded by his white whale, the endless search for a truly worthy opponent, someone or something that could really give him a run for his money. After millennia of leaving opponents dead in his wake, nothing would bring him more joy than meeting someone that actually knocked him on his ass. A new bar somewhere above him to work toward. Eventually, the Foundation started to run into a problem. They were running out of missions to give Abel. After all, he wasn't the kind of person you could just give any mission to. His potential for collateral damage was truly staggering. He'd neutralize the anomaly, then slaughter everyone within 100-foot range just to work off some of the excess energy. Like a hand grenade, he was powerful, but dangerously imprecise. If they ran out of high-priority missions, what were they supposed to do? Just put Abel back in his box to gather dust until someone else rolled around? He was getting antsy enough between missions already. that's when an unexpected member of personnel stepped forward. Dr. Jack Bright. You see, Dr. Bright and Abel had history, and not an altogether pleasant one. Not that anyone could really have a pleasant history with Abel. Jack was only a junior researcher when he had his run, carrying the seemingly worthless medallion of SCP-963 back to its containment locker. That's when the wall next to him exploded, showering him with brick fragments and dust, only to reveal Abel standing behind the new aperture. Before young Dr. Bright even had a chance to scream, Abel had already cleaved through him, leaving him in two distinct parts that were both very much shared. At least, it seemed that way.
Should I break it? Well, like, no, so.
Had actually been eternally bonded with SCP-963, giving him the gift and curse of immortality. Since then, Dr. Bright had become increasingly reckless in his conduct, perhaps hoping that the next time he fades to black, the movie that is his sad, strange life will just start to roll again. Of course, he hasn't been lucky in that yet. Naturally, this has given Dr. Bright complex feelings about his fellow anomalous Foundation employee. So when the call came around, all the senior researchers and site directors asking if there were any tasks that Eagle seemed fit for, he had one very pressing suggestion. After all, it wasn't that long after Dr. Bright had been forced into a process with the intention of terminating 682, which had not only been a failure, but a generally painful and exhausting experience. Now, perhaps it would be Abel's turn to take his lumps. He happily put forth a suggestion, claiming that surely the Foundation's new store building Golden Boy could be the hard to destroy reptile old college try. After all, even if Abel was killed in the process, he could just come right back. It was a situation where they really could not lose. So why not take a chance? What's the worst that could happen? The OPUD Council found Dr. Bright's pitch extremely compelling. He succeeded in every mission they'd given him so far, so perhaps he could carry that success into the Herculean task of actually terminating 682. One boundlessly bloodthirsty killer might be the only thing truly capable of taking out another of equal magnitude. When Abel was informed of his latest missions, he got a scary glimpse of his eyes. They gave him warning after warning. The beast is said to be unkillable. It can adapt to anything. It's killed scores of people and survived the attacks of anomalies thought to be flawless killers. The more it was explained to him, the more Abel felt the tingling sensation deep within. What was it? Had he now discovered the perfect opponent? Something that would actually challenge him, would actually put him through his paces. Yes, yes, yes. He accepted the mission without question. Abel would fight SCP-682 until his breath was no longer. In order to prepare for the match, SCP-682 was released into a secure area, rocky desert-like terrain, bordered on all sides by a Foundation perimeter, hundreds of meters away on all sides. They thought it best for the showdown to happen here. After all, with combatants like Abel and 682, it was bound to make a mess, one way or another. Abel strode with pronounced swagger onto the battleground shortly afterwards, carrying perhaps the most powerful sword he'd ever summoned. It was somewhere between a claymore and a chainsaw, an unholy union that gave the resulting weapon a degree of deranged badassery not ever seen on the battlefields of planet Earth before. Carrying this thing, Abel felt like a king, and he was about to slay the most ancient and bestial of monsters. As he approached 682 and took in the whole of it, he could feel his heart pounding with excitement in his chest. It was a huge reptilian nightmare. He could see its scales hardening into a mighty carapace as he approached, its huge serrated fangs, its bulging sinewy muscles, and insane dagger-like claws. Oh yes, this would be the one. The beast smelled at him as he approached. He just puffed out his chest and said, I have heard tales of creatures like glorious beasts of scale and flesh, talon and prey, of prowess in battle even greater than the immense intellect hiding behind those bestial eyes. They said your kind once ruled the earth from enormous stockpiles of treasure, killing and eating all who displeased you. But you were knocked from your throne one by one, by the great
had thought you to be nothing but fairy tales, but yet, here you stand before me, a living dragon. In response to Abel's lost speech, the monster merely grumbled and chided him, claiming he was little more than a pathetic SCP Foundation laptop, following orders and being manipulated. It showed no respect for Abel as a valued enemy combatant, merely another nuisance thrown at it, in a futile attempt to finish its wretched and seemingly eternal life. Abel couldn't take such insolence. He leapt forwards, bringing down his mighty chainsaw claymore, ready to cleave the beast in two. However, what he didn't expect was the one SCP-682 pulled next, throwing its head up against the blade of Abel's sword, shredding away huge chunks of flesh and bone, and utterly confusing Abel in the process. For the first time in a lifetime of intense battles, Abel found himself thinking, what the hell am I up against here? The force of 682's headbutt threw Abel off balance, leaving his stomach
Alright, so
explode. But briefly, was all SCP-682 needed. It thundered its massive stony fist into Abel's gut, throwing him like a ragdoll into a nearby force that had nearly shattered. It was a force like he hadn't felt.
Supposed to go in creative and get this stuff.
He issued a challenge to the beast in the long dead language, as it seized violently